So the question on everybody's mind right now is, which is better, the 85mm 1.8 or the 85mm 1.2? Let's just jump into it and see what we find out. Hey everyone, how's it going? Hope you're doing good. I'm doing great as always. In today's video, I'm going to look at the Nikon Z 85mm 1.8 S series lens and the Nikon Z 85mm 1.2 S lens that just came out, and see if the new 1.2 lens really is that much better than the 1.8, and if I need to go and shell out $2,800 to get this new lens and sell my old one. So let's see what we can do. So first off, let's make a quick comparison of the actual physical lenses themselves. So starting with the size of the lens, as you can see here, the f1.2 lens is about twice the size of the 1.8. The numbers here don't make it seem like it's actually twice the size, but when you hold them in your hand, the 1.2 does feel like it's actually twice the size of the 1.8. I use the 1.8 a lot, use the 1.2 for this test shooting, and trust me, the 1.2 is much larger than the 1.8. Now if we look at the actual weight of the lens, you can see that the 1.8 is 470 grams, while the 1.2 is 1,160 grams. So it's well over double the weight than the 1.8, and it's a much larger lens. Another part of the lenses that are a little bit different is the diaphragm blades. Now these are the blades that come in to make the hole that the light passes through to create your aperture. The 1.8 lens only has 9 of these, while the 1.2 lens now has 11. And I'll talk about what this does to your images a little later on in the video. Now, both lenses have internal motors to help with the autofocus and things like that, and I found that both lenses are very fast with their autofocus and very quiet as well. Neither of them really make any kind of sound when you're focusing, so they're really good for me, especially because I do a lot of shoots alongside video shoots where I can't make any noise, so having the silent shutter on the Z9 paired with these lenses really allow me to be completely silent like a ninja in the studio, and no one even knows I'm there and no one can hear anything I'm doing. So it's really, really helpful to have these quick autofocus lenses that are very, very silent as well. Also, one thing that the 1.2 lens does have that the 1.8 doesn't, there's actually two things here. There is a programmable ring on the 1.2 lens that is by default you use to change the aperture, but it can be used to change many different things. And there's also a programmable button on the side of the lens as well. Neither of these are on the 1.8, so this is kind of an extra bonus in functionality and usability of the 1.2. Now, if you want to see more of the actual physical details and all the little nitty-gritty numbers and everything like that, please check in my description of the video. And I have links to the Nikon USA website with all the details you'd ever want to see about the lenses. I'm not going to go into too much detail there because it's not really super critical to my shooting, but if you want to see it, they're there in the links below and go check it out. So basically what this all means is, for the extra few stops the 1.2 provides over the 1.8, the 1.2 is double the size and over double the weight of the 1.8. It's a much larger, much heavier lens. And for someone like myself who shoots long periods during the day for events and things like that, this could be something to consider. I also like to travel quite compact. I have one small bag that I often take if I'm not using my flashes. And I don't know if I want to throw in another really large lens into that bag when the 1.8 85mm already fits in there very, very nicely. Another issue that I found with concern to this size difference in the lenses is when shooting video. I shoot handheld most of the time. I still have not purchased a gimbal or anything like that. So having the compact size and lightweight of the 1.8 is actually a really big benefit for myself when shooting. It really balances well on the camera and it's easy to hold and easy to shoot. And I find I can shoot film for a longer time than maybe with the size and weight of the 1.2. But don't get me wrong, they both have stunning images when you're shooting with them. The 1.2 with video is absolutely amazing. The 1.8 as well is very, very nice. The bokeh is great. Your subject really gets separated from the background, and they're both amazing lenses to use for video. It's just if you're willing to go with the extra weight and size in your setup. I personally like something a little more compact, like I said. So at the moment, I maybe would reach for the 1.8 more than the 1.2, but that just could be my inexperience in filming, as the 1.2 could be just that much better. I'm not sure yet. This is something you'll need to decide for yourself. Now, what I'm sure many of you want to actually see is the actual difference in the bokeh and the separation of the subject between the 1.8 and the 1.2, and if there is a big enough difference that you really do need to shell out the extra money for the 1.2 over the 1.8. So what I did was I called up my friend Sakurako, and I went out and we had to do a photo shoot. So I've made up a little bit of a mini video showing the differences in the photos that I shot at 1.8 and 1.2, as well as some video as well. So take a look at that. Maybe you'll be able to decide on your own which one you like more. But then after that, I'll come back and I'll give you my own thoughts and ideas about which one is better and how they differ from each other. So just, general first impressions of the images. All the images from both lenses are amazingly sharp, beautiful images. They all have good separation out of the background from her and the background because of the nice bokeh. And so I'm really happy with all the images we got. Looking closely though at the individual images and checking everything very, very carefully, you will notice a fair difference in the bokeh and even some bits of the sharpness between the 1.8 and the 1.2. So let's just go over that now and look at the images a little bit closer. So just one example, I have two images here, one shot with the 1.8, one shot with the 1.2. Now looking at the bokeh in the background, with the 1.8 you can kind of notice a bit more of the details in the ceiling of the place we were shooting at. You can see kind of like the rafters and kind of that kind of stuff there. You can really make out what's in the background a little bit better. With the images of the 1.2, it is really bokeh'd that much more than the 1.8, and it gets a little bit glassier, a little bit blurrier, stronger bokeh in that, and it allows you to be separated more from separate the subject more from the background. And as far as like which is better, I don't know. I really like the bokeh on both of them. I think the 1.8 does a really, really good job of bringing out the bokeh and separating the subject in this and in the other ones that we have. You can see these here. When you look, there is a visual difference, obviously, because the bokeh is that much stronger. You're opening it up that much more. But I don't think the 1.8 lens really loses that much to the 1.2. I love the 1.2. It's an amazing, amazing lens. But the 1.8 still is getting 90 to 95% of the way to the 1.2 as far as bokeh and separation of the subject. So it's still doing a really, really good job compared to the much more expensive 1.2 lens. So another different part of these two lenses with concern to the bokeh is that the 1.8, like I said, has 9 of these diaphragm blades, while the 1.2 has 11 diaphragm blades. Looking on the Nikon website, the big difference here is with the 9 blade and shooting at, they say, f.2, the light points, I think they say the focus points of light in the background, say, of your image, basically become perfectly circular. So you can see here in these images, when I was shooting at 1.2 on the 1.2 lens, these light points, you can see it's slight oval shape to them. But when I stop it down to f.20, now it's pretty much perfectly cylindrical and round. For myself, this isn't something I really worry about so much, the shape of the bokeh in the background, but this is something that some people might be concerned about or interested in playing around with in that. So if you really want to have like nice round bokeh, the 1.2 lens shot at 2.0 will give you these perfectly round light points in the background, which looks really neat actually. It looks really, really nice and really, really smooth, these kind of orbs of light in the background. Now looking at the sharpness of the images, of the things that are in focus, not bokeh'd out in these when you're shooting with these lenses. Both the 1.2 and the 1.8 provide a lot of sharpness in the images. Everything that you see that is in focus is really, really spot on and in focus. There's no haloing. There's no kind of soft focus. Even though it's in focus, it's not soft. It's very sharp, very beautiful focus. And saying that, actually, looking very closely and switching back and forth between the images for this video, I was noticing that although both are very sharp, for some reason, just aesthetically and kind of subconsciously, I really prefer the sharpness and the look to the 1.2 over the 1.8. Now this is just personal preference and kind of how my eye works. So for me, it looked a little bit better, but I found that the 1.2, the sharpness and I guess also the separation from the background maybe has a play in that, but it just personally, the aesthetic of it, I liked it better than the 1.8. So now I also shot some video, as you can see from the little clip that I showed you before. And I should note, I personally don't have any ND filters to use with these, so I did have to crank up the shutter speed a little bit higher than I would have preferred. Seems to look all right, but just if the video does look a little bit strange in that aspect, it's because the shutter speed was way higher than I should have had it. If you do want to shoot video with the 1.2 or the 1.8 and you're planning on doing it outside, and this is something that I think every filmer knows out there, but myself, I'm a beginner with film. Get some ND filters, get them on there so you can have any kind of control of the light. Otherwise, you're going to just be having to crank up that shutter speed. Looks cool maybe in like a Hollywood action scene, but for normal videos and stuff like that, it just doesn't look that natural. Yeah, pick up some ND filters for sure. But just going back to the quality of the video in general between the 1.8 and the 1.2, I found them both amazing. They both looked really, really good, of course. The bokeh in them is very nice as well. But more so than the photos, I found with the video, it was really hard for me to just look instantly at the video and know if it was a shot at 1.2 or 1.8. I found there was quite a bit of similarity in the bokeh in the video. Obviously, like if you do take a good look at it, like you can see the difference between this video, which was a shot on 1.2, and this video, which was shot on 1.8. And you can tell the kind of the bokeh in the lines in the background. It's a little bit more obviously in the 1.2 than the 1.8, but it wasn't so much that it really jumped out at me. Maybe if I'm closer in on someone's face and something like that, where the bokeh might be a little bit more prominent, it could pop out more. But I found a lot of the shots that I was doing, they're like 3/4 body shots and stuff like that. I didn't really notice a huge difference in the bokeh when shooting the video. The 1.8 is much smaller, much more compact and lighter, so it's a little bit easier on your equipment and your body when shooting long days of video. The 1.2 is much bigger, and the 1.2 provides more light. So if you're shooting in low light situations, it's obviously better because you get those 3 or 4 extra stops to shoot. But if you're looking for a lot more bokeh, I didn't really notice it myself. So you take the look at the video and let me know what you think. Yeah, so that's basically it. You know, like the 1.2 is an amazing lens, very large, quite heavy. But the image quality is amazing. The separation from the background because of that bokeh is absolutely gorgeous. The sharpness of the lens is unbelievable. Autofocus is very fast. Saying that, it is $2,800 lens at the moment, so it is quite a big investment for a lot of people. So if you do have that budget, you're a professional like myself, and it is something you really need to have in your quiver of lenses, I would say go for it. It's a beautiful lens. I don't think anyone would regret ever buying this. But if you are just starting to, say, get into prime lenses, and you're just starting to get into photography more or filming more, and you want something a little bit more budget, I think the 85 1.8 right now is about $700 or $800. So that's like a third of the price, if not less. So it's a much easier starting point for people who are doing videos and photos as well. And again, it's a beautiful lens as well, nice and compact, very light, very easy to throw in your bag. The 1.8 does provide great bokeh, and it does leave a little bit of information there. It doesn't really smooth out everything like the 1.2, but it still looks very good, very sharp. When you're just out shooting with it, it's really great. I've used it in a lot of different situations. I think either one you pick up in the long run, you'll be very happy with. But like I said, if you can afford it, I would go for the 1.2. If you're like, I got big hands, so the size and the weight isn't that big of an issue for me. I'm not a small guy. Hearing online, some people do complain about weight of cameras and weight of lenses and things like that. So there's something for you to consider if that's what is an issue for yourself. But in the end, I would say obviously the 85mm 1.2 S lens is the better lens in pretty much every aspect. But that is, it's an amazing lens. It's beautiful. If I could have it in my bag right now, I would. But the 1.8 can do 95% of what the 1.2 does. If funds are an issue for you, if money's an issue for you, I would go for the 85mm 1.8 first, and then save up, dream, and get your butt working really hard, and then get that other 1.2 down the road someday when you really want to have those extra stops, or you feel like you've outgrown the 85 1.8. Thanks a lot. Yeah, so these are just my opinions. I hope all the sample images I showed you here today you liked, and if you have any questions or comments, please hit me down below. Really thanks a lot for all the love and support these days. I'm really enjoying it, and yeah, talk to you soon. Don't forget to subscribe, and cheers.